We live in a fast-paced and hectic world where it's easy to feel overwhelmed, stressed, and out of control. How do you manage all the competing pressures without losing sense of yourself? How do you stay focused enough to not only plot a path, but follow it? Welcome to Master Your Life, a show that offers inspiration, insight, and intelligence, as well as success stories from many walks of life that can show you how you can control your own destiny. Our knowledgeable and entertaining host and her guests give practical advice that you can use every day in the quest to master your life. Now, here's your host, Leaha Mattinson.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I'm host Leaha Mattinson, and thank you to each and every one of you from wherever it is that you are on this beautiful planet for tuning in and joining us today. I'm joined with my frequent guest, Dr. David Hardy. Dr. Dave, how are you doing today?
Oh, fantastic. What a gorgeous morning, and it's great to be here. Thank you.
It is a gorgeous morning, and we're going to do this really quickly so we can all get out of here and go enjoy a long weekend. So I hope wherever you are listening to this and at whatever time that you're in, you have plans to have an enjoyable day right after you listen to this podcast. And if you're tuning in via podcast, we also want to invite you to come over to the masteryourlife.ca website so that you can watch the video version. We're going to be talking about not tips and tricks, but real life things that can help you to be well. So we're not really into the big hacks. We're more into what are the real life things that you can do that actually do require some work and dedication on your part in order to manifest health and well-being. So that is what we're going to hone in on today. So whether you're listening to us on Recovery Road or Master Your Life, it doesn't matter. Share it with friends, family, and people who you know that might be struggling in their life to be able to find insight, intelligence, and inspiration to be living a satisfying life. We had a special request from a listener, and so that's where the impetus for this show is coming from. This is somebody who was in a supportive role, and I'm just going to read out actually what he had to say. First of all, thank you, Doug G., for reaching out, and anyone else who wants to reach out about podcast ideas, you know that you can do that by dropping us a line at leahamattinson@gmail.com, or again, just coming to the website and taking a moment to actually subscribe to the mailing list. And there's actually a little place right there that you can apply to be a guest on the show. So if you're interested in doing that, yes, then come check it out. So again, that's masteryourlife.ca, not .com. All right. So folks, here's from Doug G. Big shout out to Doug G. And lots of love from us because you're dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. And
Definitely.
Yes. So he said, first of all, I see your posts and your podcasts. It's very supportive material. So I just requested if there was anything else that we could talk about that would be helpful to him. And he said, well, my biggest problem is dealing with my daughter on her recovery. And she is about 30-ish, and she has children, and she and her husband are addicts. But they just recently got out of addiction treatment, and not for the first time. So they've been in and out several times. And he said, to be honest, she still has no organization or planning skills, and she drives me crazy. But I do understand how important it is to be supportive. So being in a supportive role can be very frustrating. I'm sure I'm not alone here.
No, definitely not.
Not alone. And so for those of you who've tuned into drdavidhardy.com, you'll see that he has a video there explaining the Hardy Brain program. And part of that, he talks about, in that description, he talks about a post-addiction client that he worked with. And I wanted you to just take a minute, Dave, and reshare that story, if you wouldn't mind, for the audience, because I thought that was quite powerful, just about the cost of treatment for people.
For sure. Yeah. I was working in a functional neurology office down in the US in North Carolina. And one of the clients that came through was post-addiction, and also had quite a few neurologic things going on at the same time, which drove his addiction. And we're sitting with the father, and the father starts talking to us, and he's like, he's telling us about the battle he's had with his son, and he was an entrepreneur and quite successful as well. And he he then said something that just resonated and stuck with me to this point in time. And that was just how much money he spent and time and effort on his son's addiction recovery programs. And he turns to us and he goes, yeah, I've spent over $200,000 over the course of 3 to 5 years or whatever it was. And you guys have been able to do more in 3 weeks with a fraction of that cost. And we were just blown away by that. And it just stuck to me that, there needs to be a combination approach. And the piece of the puzzle that's missing in most of these cases are figuring out what's going on in the brain and nervous system that's causing people or leading to or driving that person wanting to and craving a substance to put them into a different state. And we all know the prevalency and the importance of finding solutions to this mess. And I think that we really need to dive into the stimulation approach a lot better.
Yeah, it's a very powerful story and important. Just to stop again, I encourage people to always get out a pen and paper or pencil and paper so that you can take notes, because I want you to write that number down, 200,000 plus. And you might go, oh, come on, can that even be possible? But I remember checking into treatment options for family members, years ago. And there's not even, you couldn't even get into anything that was government paid for here at the time. But there was a huge long waiting list, and that probably hasn't changed. And private care for one person, and you can check across the globe. You guys do your research yourself and see what the prices are right now. If you try to go into a treatment program that's 1 month, that's because they want you to be off grid for a month, typically for these programs. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that that's what the cost is. So it's 25,000 plus USD. Typically they want more than that's on the low end. That's on the low end. And then they want you to be there. They want your family members to come in for treatment also. And so they pay a separate fee for that. And so it's very important, A, do your research, but also that B, these treatment programs are typically for people who have drug problems, but the drug addicts are not the only people with addiction issues. And so, your drug addict friend or family member might have gone in for treatment and you're going, oh, that bad drug addict. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, you are at home struggling with your own addictions because they're just not illegal or costing, getting you a criminal record or those kinds of things. But it's the same parts of the brain that are causing these, the addictive behaviors, the addictive stimulation. So
absolutely,
you don't have to be the only one that wants to get free of this, or, your loved one. But as supportive people in support roles, we're often dealing with our own addictions as well. And so what do you think about that, Dave?
Yeah, and that's completely accurate to a lot of extent. Of course, these facilities, they've got a lot going on, and the cost is probably justified with everything that they're providing. And then the takeaway with what I said was that there's a part of it, though, that's missing. Otherwise, we wouldn't have people bouncing in and out of recovery centers. And that's well known and documented. And then when it comes to kind of family dynamics, genetics, everything else, and environment and genetics, I hate saying that nature versus nurture debate because, it's really the piece of the puzzle we're after is how they integrate and connect with each other. So the genetic and the nurturing side come together and influence each other. So of course there's going to be kind of a lot of things that are very similar in the family that also you see in someone who does have an addiction issue. And there's a lot of those same drivers and same kind of pathways that are overactive, and we're constantly searching for something to bring us back into a state where we feel relaxed, calm, and not over the edge. Or we feel sluggish and we're looking for that upper to get us into a different state where we feel alive, and all of a sudden life isn't boring, and things aren't as dramatic. It's exciting. So there's something going on in the brain that is causing us to want to find something that changes our state and our mood. And of course, it's all kind of on a spectrum. Like, some people can have a drink of alcohol and just one drink and they're done, or they can have one hit of cocaine or whatever, and that's it. And other people, the first time they have that drink, then they just need more and more, or they constantly need that substance to kind of make them feel better, and then they can't go without it. So we need to look at, okay, well, what's firing in the brain, or what overactively, or what's not firing properly, and start to get that more in sync, so that people have that control over their life, and don't crave these substances as much. Mm-hmm. There's an underlying reason why they always are going back to that same drug or situation.
Right. Yeah. And one of the other things that you said in your video, which I found very interesting and maybe speaks to this as well, is that there's lots of people who are in support roles. You didn't say that, but I'm saying that. There's a lot of people who are in support roles. What you said in the video is, how many people are relying on you? Right. And I thought immediately, oh, okay, all of these support people, or all these people who need your support are relying on you. And then in the very next line, you said, or how many people are you competing against? And I went, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Because when you actually look at what the support role is, often you're competing against whatever is the thing that the other person has that's more important than a happy life. So, right. Or what you maybe deem as a happy life. So there is these competing factors. But really identifying what you're competing against and seeing if you can even compete against it. So when it comes to drugs, I just go, man, I wouldn't have a clue. Would not have a clue how to compete against something like, any illegal drugs. I wouldn't have a clue. So there you are, a support person trying to figure out how to be supportive and not even really understanding the damage that's going on with that person's brain when they're doing these things. And then you go, well, can't they just willpower themselves out of it? Like, what's going on? Why can't they do that? Right? Because you go, don't you love? So like, this is the pleading. We plead with people too, right? It's like, oh God, like, why don't you want to take care of your children? Or why are you trying to break your mother's heart? And
the whole willpower thing is just, I can't still to this day get over how much judgment we have as humans over other people's willpower. And we know with ourselves that willpower is very fragile. And even if you're really, really strong and have good willpower over most things in your life, there's going to be some things in your life where willpower sucks and falls apart. And we all have that. And of course, to different extents. And really, there's kind of that teeter-totter, willpower versus drives, cravings. And that's kind of that tipping point. Well, if you have high drives and cravings and are on a substance, your willpower and your cognition and your executive power in the brain is just gonna tank. So it really is trying to find, okay, well, how do we decrease those drivers in the brain that lead to cravings? And how do we increase that willpower or thought, cognition, executive areas of our brain that say no? And there's different ways to fire into both those systems. And of course, we've all been kind of, when we hear about a drug that increases serotonin or increases dopamine, we get all excited. Oh, wow, that's great stuff. And yeah, oh, you can take this pill and your serotonin's going to go up and your depression's going to go down type thing. Well, it sort of works that way, and it sort of doesn't, because you get upregulation and downregulation of receptors. Mm-hmm. But what if I was to say that, well, we actually know kind of the nerves and the stimulations that will go into different parts of your brain, so the serotonergic system, the dopaminergic system, and that we can exercise that part of the brain, get it stronger, and that would actually release more serotonin and actually be regulated better. And that's exciting. But you tell people, oh yeah, you do these simple little exercises, and it's going to, once again, kind of make that part of the brain stronger. And people are like, oh yeah, sure, type thing. And it's like, well, no, it can happen, and it's very, very exciting, because you can actually target different parts and be more effective and efficient. Yeah, it does take some work. It does take training, but it's doable. And we know these mechanisms.
And it takes just as much work to go to the hospital and to see your doctor and to get the prescription for whatever the pill is and to take it every day. So it's work too. So sitting in the parking lot or sitting in the doctor's office. And again, I'm not dissing any medication. Do whatever you think is right for you. But if you haven't even considered that you could be well without medication, that speaks to, again, do you know who your competition is? Because one of the gifts, definitely with the Huntington's disease thing, is that I was told by the neurologist, you're on your own until you're symptomatic. Wow. You're on your own, that quote unquote. So that was 14 years ago. And so I was like, well, that's a strange thing to say, like, because except maybe take creatine. We don't even know how much, and we don't know if it helps or not, but that might be the one thing we could tell you. But I never said that. So I'm like, okay. And, but really the medication, I've been to several of the conferences about Huntington's disease, and we had somebody talking about taking cannabis. And yes. And it was just like, well, the jury's out. We don't know if it actually makes you worse or better. So use it. If you're going to use anything, use it with extreme caution. And I thought, okay, so then, essentially what you're saying is really don't take any pills. That's what I'm hearing. So that was my interpretation. Don't take any pills until you're symptomatic, because your brain is so fragile. Your brain is so fragile that if you care at all about it and your life, then you're going to want to consider not actually introducing foreign substances in, which I think is an interesting thing that we seem to do all the time, is we're into not just going to foreign lands, but ingesting all kinds of foreign substances and allowing it to come into our body, our beautiful body that's supposed to be well functioning, right? So that people don't even consider that it could be well functioning.
Right. Well, that goes back into this mentality in society that we want that big hit instead of small little things that increase performance or increases basically how the brain's functioning and hopefully the longevity of it. Yeah. And yeah, we're lazy that way. Let's just admit it. We want that big hit. We want that home run, that grand slam that sends us into this other state, instead of small little things that will get us there. And it's more difficult to build up small little things that are going to make your system stronger and take away the things that are going to make it weaker. And the other thing is, we're lacking in the awareness to actually monitor how the brain is functioning. Most people are just monitoring off symptoms and how they feel. Well, if you've never felt better in your life, then that's your normal, and that's what you're going to stick with. And then, okay, this big hit comes along and you feel great. Never felt that again. Wouldn't you want to always kind of go back to that? And the answer is, of course, yes. But if your normal is sluggish or not working properly, if there's little things that could improve it and get that better, we're not likely to do it because we don't know we're heading in that direction. Or with your case in the Huntington's, is we've really left patients with no clue at how their brain is actually working, performing, before these huge onset of symptoms come on. And the thing is, there's small little things we can measure that's going to tell us what direction you're going, or projection, whether you're going up in function or down in function. And the exciting thing is kind of when healthcare actually gets twisted, turned inside out, is that there are a lot more kind of wearable devices and things we can start to use to manage our levels and see once again, okay, well, no, my system is starting to decline right now. I need to be in a recovery period. I need to work on things that are going to get my system back. Or, yeah, what I'm doing is working and things are improving and getting better. I want to continue on that track. And this is what I need to look at in order to know I'm going that direction, and not be left in the dark and be told, yeah, you're on your own. Yeah, we just dropped this bomb on you that you've got this neurologic condition in your genes that's going to sometime in your life come out.
Mm-hmm. Surprise.
Yeah. Hey, go live your life now.
That's right. I thought you said you liked surprises. No, only the surprises I want.
Right, exactly. Right.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So for our Doug and other support people who are tuning in and looking for, what do they do in order to be the best support that they can be? And also, because this is real life challenges. There's, children often involved, grandchildren involved, and very complex. So rather than just turning on the TV and watching the next episode of whatever it is that people watch this, at this day and age, because that's escapism also, is like, what is it? And maybe there's a time, I don't know about that, but what is it that people can do that can help to alleviate the amount of stress that's involved in that support role? And it's different than caregiving a little bit. So caregiving, I kind of see as when somebody is so far along in their deterioration that you're actually physically needing to help them with things.
Well, yeah, that's a great example. And too many people in a support role are trying to be in a caregiving role. And let's be honest, like for the general population and everyone listening in, how many of you have been at a family gathering and all of a sudden kind of gone back to kind of feelings of childhood, and then you're at this party or get together and you want that glass of wine. Oh no, I've got to deal with my mother-in-law or that brother or sister that annoys you or something there. And so family dynamics, of course, without even knowing it, can kind of drive people out of that state and into one that's going to be not good for them. And I think the worst thing for family is to try to be in a caregiving role in these situations. It's not your area to give advice, because it's most likely, unless you've got that relationship, is going to go the other way. But of course, that support role is key. And in Doug's case, I think it's awesome that he recognized that, yeah, she's come out of this recovery center, but organization and planning skills. Well, let's dissect that more. Okay, you're noticing organization, planning skills. What's kind of underlying that? What would cause somebody to have poor organization and planning skills? And that, of course, is kind of being ramped up, impulsive. And he's noticing that, yeah, that part of her brain nervous system was never fixed. So, yeah, we've had this period now where we've got the drugs and we've processed, okay, that in our brains with the therapies and everything. But underlying it, there's still this impulsive, overactive neurology going on. And he's recognized that, which is amazing, and good on you for seeing that. Because now the next step is, okay, can I direct and support my loved one into finding a solution to that problem? And sitting down and trying to just organize things isn't going to work, because you're going to fall back into your default neurology. And that driver of impulsivity and everything else is going to still be there, regardless of if you improve your willpower on it. So you've got to find a way to get rid of that impulsivity. And that is to train those circuits, those parts of the brain, to decrease that, so that that urge isn't there as much. Otherwise, when that willpower drops, when we're stressed out, or life kicks us again, is going to crash. And then the craving and impulsivity and everything that's leading to that addiction is just going to come forward. And Doug, being the loving supporter he is noticing this. And now it is to kind of support along that journey and encourage a solution to this issue, and not to be the one to actually do kind of the therapy or the giving of advice on that, but to just recognize it's supported and nurture through how to get a solution. And part of that is, doing the research, and Doug's out there listening and looking at different resources and everything. And that's what a good supporter is doing.
And so are you a resource for people like his loved one?
Absolutely. Yes.
So your program
in this realm that is just looking at how the brain is wired. I'm not an addiction counselor, and I'm not going to give advice on that aspect of things. But what I can do is look at the brain and look at these drivers and see, once again, is there something physical that could maybe help out? And that's kind of the role that I play in this. And I still recommend that they see their addiction counselor, therapy, and the supports, because those do help out, and those have been big. And that's the role they play. They know that world extremely well and give that support along that journey, and are trained in that realm. And then the training I have is basically in the physical areas of the brain and just making the brain more efficient. And hopefully, if we get that part of the puzzle figured out, then the combination is going to be the thing that gets people clean and living a healthy, fulfilled life, instead of always searching and worrying about that next hit, or whether you'll fall back into some pattern that was there before.
Yeah, and these are important things, I think, for people who are in that support role to also, there's the healthy skepticism, where you had pointed that out at the beginning of the conversation today, Dr. Hardy, and you'd said, people will go, well, can you really make it better? Or can it really be improved? And then they go, like they kind of don't believe it. So right. then it's like almost an excuse to not try something also, though, to see if it will improve. And so it's like there's no harm, no foul. If you try something, it doesn't work, at least you can say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. But when you don't try stuff and then you're skeptical, I just go, are you kidding me? Like, what are you talking about? Here you have no experience. You don't know what you're talking about. So you have a lot of people who are naysayers, and they'll be like, no. And they'll be your biggest combatants also when you're trying to do something to improve your health, right?
That competition.
That's the competition. That's right. They want you to stay stuck also. Yeah, they don't want you to improve your health. And for what, it's not even, I don't know that it's malicious necessarily, but sometimes just kind of.
Right. Absolutely. And anything new is going to have skepticism around it. So the thing is to explain things that make sense. And I think a better example is, let's look at pain. So we know pain is a driver in addictions. So with pain, you're going to want to take something and get that pain gone. You don't want that feeling of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, the opiate crisis has been on the forefront with pain syndromes. And well, what if we can decrease pain so that people don't need to go on these substances? And that's starting to be established with other therapies that, once again, decrease pain and have a track record with that. Now, pain is a sensation of feeling. It's also what I call a driver. So it's driving a different state that people want to get out of. Mm. And kind of the theme of this is, I think there's other states and drivers, which are sensations abnormally that people are trying to get away from. And I think if we look at these sensations and ways to calm down the sensations and then fuel up other sensations in the brain that lead to other moods and states, then we're going to have more success with things. And pain's just one of those classic examples that everybody out there has felt. And of course, the more pain you have, the harder substance you want to knock it out. Mm-hmm. And of course, well, people have low-lying pain that's chronic. And well, we've got to look at different ways to calm down that sensation and improve other sensations. So the analogy I use for that is basically we all have kind of these volume switches in our brain, these little knobs where, yeah, we feel this one sensation. And of course, if it's turned up, then the other ones we don't notice as well. Mm-hmm. And well, we need to look at changing some of these dials through all the different sensations. So increasing the pleasurable sensations in our body and decreasing the unpleasurable ones leads to a better state and mood. And we all know that. So it's looking at, okay, well, how do we do this? By stimulating different nerves and receptors and pathways in the nervous system and decrease these drivers that are leading people to want and crave something else that gives them that hit and that different feeling.
Yeah. And I think people know it.
Yes.
So like they know it, but they don't necessarily remember it. So the activating on the knowing is sometimes has roadblocks against it, right? They go, oh, like I knew that, or I should have, why did I not know better? I know better. And yet I've done this. Again.
Well, it's a fuzzy way. It's a fuzzy way of knowing it. All you know is that you don't feel good when you're in these states. Yes. And I look at it like somebody that's coming in just for regular maintenance with adjustments or something, is that I'll poke around in different areas of their body and they'll be like, oh, I didn't know that spot hurt.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Yet it's hurting kind of more of a low grade area and you're not perceiving it well, but all that information is going up to the brain saying, I'm achy, I'm sore, I don't feel good. And you're just not able to localize it as well. So when you're not able to localize it really well, then it just becomes your state, your mood, and your normal. And it's really kind of this foggy area where you just don't feel good, but you don't know why. And basically, your body's always sending messages up to the brain, telling you how you're feeling. And a common example now is gut health. Well, everything we eat is sending a signal to our brain, whether it's good or bad. And yeah, initially that feeling could be, oh, sugar, I love sugar. Oh, I love those salty snacks. Okay. And then later what's going to be sent up to the brain is, I don't have enough minerals. I don't have enough fiber. My gut bacteria has changed. That's just sitting there. It's not being digested properly because of all the ingredients put in there, so it won't spoil. And all of that information is being sent up to the brain constantly, which changes how we're feeling, which changes emotions. So yeah, we can kind of have these mixed perceptions of what's actually causing us to be in this state mood. And if we're constantly in one, that becomes our normal, and we don't know how to get out of it, and we don't know what's causing it, and it becomes confusing for us.
So delayed gratification is something that's, yes, can be put into practice. It's quite lovely.
Yes.
But again, to the video, I want everyone to go and watch it because it was so well done. Again, you can go to, what's your website again, Dave?
Oh, the hardybrain.ca.
Okay, thehardybrain.ca. Okay, see, I said .com. So make sure you go to .ca, thehardybrain.ca. Watch the video because in it, Dr. Dave has also got the brain in the video showing all the parts of it. Now, it's not like, hard to take. It's a pretty easy, cartoony sort of video. So it's easy to digest. But the important piece of looking at each part of the brain is understanding that you do have that much control over how you feel. So each part of the brain kind of currently, as much as science knows at this moment, is that, there's little parts of the brain that we can assign to specific sorts of behaviors or feelings or problems. And so you can, instead of going, it's a willpower problem or whatever, you can more like a mechanic look at your brain and go, or a gardener, however you want to look at yourself, go opening that and looking at it and go, okay, where could this problem actually originate? And if I was able to grasp the concept that it isn't my heart, and it isn't something from afar that is attacking me, it is my own brain that is causing some of the strife in my life. And how do I actually repair it? And then you had also said in there that some of the activities that you do could be more harmful than helpful if you don't know what's actually going on in there. And I can attest to this because years ago, when I, again, first thought my good news there, that I'd gone, of course, because you're your own scientist then, right? I read every research paper I could get my hands on. I hired doctors to talk to me about what good brain health would be. And the current research at the time, what it said about, having a healthy brain. And that part of it was not, and I was training at that time. So I was taking some athletic supplements that had glutamine, I think, in it was, but, do your research again. Whatever it was that I was taking for a supplement for post-workout recovery was completely something I should not have been taking because you were not supposed to excite the brain with so it was part of this going, oh man, I was taking that, lots of it, and then going, okay, don't take that. But unless, I wouldn't have known unless I'd been researching like crazy about what to take, what not to take. So this is what you do. Part of what you do is that you do this individual approach so that it's not the sort of throw the spaghetti at the wall. Like I didn't have any help. I was figuring it out on my own. For the most part, only doctors that I spoke to that I hired specifically around neurology and to write blogs for me. So I'd have people, I write PhDs or doctors to hire to write blogs for me. And some of their blog posts weren't even accurate, so you're checking your own people to make sure that their information is right. But if you care about your health and your happiness and your success in life, then you need to be your own best investigator. So that's what I was, again, going back to your video, why I found it so powerful is not quite the word, but just precise, like helps a person to be more precise about what's going on, because then you can look at yourself with some compassion and go, oh, okay, well, maybe the actual problem here in my brain is that I've been doing this one thing here that really has diminished my ability to have self-control or to have good executive functioning or to have good cognition. And so can you speak a little bit to that? Like things that maybe would be counterproductive for people to take or do if they have specific brain conditions or brain problems. Maybe condition is too labeling.
Yeah, let's go to your supplement example. So basically in a lot of supplements, they talk about energy. So sometimes what they do is they put things in there that's going to, once again, increase energy. But if you have an hyperactive disorder, so things are already working extremely fast in certain parts of the brain, you don't necessarily want to do something that's going to drive that even higher. Because if you drive it even higher, then it's eventually going to kind of burn out. And yeah, when we get kind of that hit of energy, it feels good. And that's why they have these things. And but if it's already an issue or a problem with one part of the brain firing too much, then you don't want to give them something that's going to make that even more efficient, because then you're whipping that racehorse until it dies, basically.
Right.
And that is unfortunately kind of the wrong thing when we think about some people who are kind of tired or worn out, is that it might not be an energy issue. It might be a problem that basically the brakes aren't working on this part of the brain, so it's firing too much, which then becomes very tiring and exhausting for the brain and leads to burnout. And so you need to be able to kind of recognize that that's the issue. And okay, well, then we need to look at inhibitory pathways. So the pathways in the brain that are going to calm down these other areas. Or we need to look at taking away stimulation that's going to fire and ramp up these parts of the brain. So just because you might feel tired or sluggish doesn't necessarily mean that the energy systems aren't firing well. It might be that you're just sucking those energy systems dry. And yeah, once again, this comes back to identifying your own nervous system and the different functions of it. And that education isn't out there. And that's what I'm attempting to provide to people, is that insight into figuring out your own nervous system, so then you can come up with the right strategies. And not trusting that, oh, just this one symptom and this one substance or exercise is going to help me out with it, because it might be the wrong tactic. And the energy example, the supplement one you gave, is such a great example of that. And I always remember, like, Parkinson's was that when I was taking courses on the basal ganglia, which also is a Huntington's disorder, is that it's, once again, that parts of this system start to fire too much because the inhibition has been taken away. And then if you do give them something that's going to make the energy system more efficient, you're actually causing more harm because you're driving that system even harder now. And yeah, we really need to be careful about different things. The other is that no pain, no gain mentality. Well, when your brain's starting to decline, or some parts are already tired and kind of worn out, driving them even harder is not the solution. You need to find lower stimulations that's going to slowly bring it back into a function that's going to work.
And so is lower stimulation sitting in front of the TV or turning on your gaming device and playing?
No,
what?
Definitely not. Right?
That's everyone. I just go. People go, I'm checking out for a while. I'm taking a break, and they turn their phone on. I'm like, what are you doing over there? Oh, I'm playing whatever game is. I'm like, yeah. So that is not the go-to. What would be a better, go-to?
Better solution, yeah.
What would be a better go-to potentially?
Well, with sensations, and light is a key one. Light stimulates us. That's why that early morning sunrise wakes us up. Is light is stimulatory. So light in the morning is a great thing. It keeps us going. Excessive light right as we're falling asleep is not a good idea. And different frequencies of light are going to have different responses. That's why a sunset is kind of more soothing and draws us into that sleeping mode. It's a different frequency of light versus that screen time, that cell phone in front of our faces. We're under the covers and then, oh, I woke up, I'm not feeling well rested. Well, yeah, you were stimulating those activation areas of your brain, and that's kind of the dopaminergic system as well. So then we're also addicted to it because dopamine gives us that, excitement and feel good. I want more of it type response. So we need to look at taking that stimulation away from us at certain times so that we get the response we want. Now, we always talk about serotonin being kind of that bodily awareness and antidepressant type neurotransmitter. Well, let's look at the part of the brain that fires into. Well, that part of the brain is kind of that mid brainstem area, the pons. So let's look at deep, relaxed breathing, because the respiratory centers are kind of in that area. And you might have heard of vagal stimulation, which is lower in the brainstem as well, which is body sensations. So stimulating kind of those activities. Why some people go to sugar and sweets is because, yeah, that kind of fires into that part of the brainstem as well. But there are other ways to stimulate it. The breathing is just such a good example because it's free, it's easy, and we don't do it enough to kind of relax the system and calm it down. Different sounds are going to give us a calming effect as well. So giving these calming sensations, touch is a huge one as well. Mm-hmm. And those weighted blankets, well, that's kind of that hug pressure sensation and feeds into that part of the brain which soothes us, relaxes us. And if you think about sleep is basically our nervous system taking care of our own body and not caring about the outside world. So if we simplify it even more, you want those sensations about your body versus the outside world, mm-hmm. and starting to concentrate on yourself versus everything else that's bombarding us and causes us to be in this higher state. Because let's face it, that's basically what goes on in our society and lives, is that we're so bombarded with outside information versus our own body. So concentrate on your body and focus more on that, especially if you want that good sleep, that relaxation, that recovery, so that your body doesn't start to shut down on yourself.
Yeah, beautiful. We're out of time for today, but I want to say thank you, a big shout out to Doug for sharing his question, because that was a really good one. And I think millions of people can relate to being in a support role. And a big thank you to you, Dr. David Hardy, for running such a great program and truly and genuinely wanting people to be well and to take back their health and sort of seeing this wellness can come from within. And you've been, banging that drum for a long time. So I want to really encourage people to go check out your website, and thehardybrain.ca. And if you can't find Dave, then come find us at masteryourlife.ca. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this episode with people who you care about. And get yourself taken care of and hand over the care of your loved ones who you're trying to support to the professionals who can actually help. And then you can actually sit back and relax and have a good night's sleep. Yay for that. All right, everybody. Love yourselves. Love each other. Mind your minds. That's all for us. Bye for now.
Thank you for being a part of our program today. Master Your Life is a presentation of Leaha Mattinson Enterprises, Inc. Join us next time on Master Your Life, helping you to discover the very best of you.